If true, this changes everything for the Toronto Blue Jays. It has been a hectic past few hours for the Jays as multiple reports, multiple rumors have dropped, revealing some crazy information surrounding both Pete Alonso and Max Scherzer heading to the Blue Jays. We're going to break down these reports and discuss what it means, as well as discuss some brand new updates surrounding the whole situation as it's gotten out of hand on Jays Twitter. Everyone is scrambling regarding these reports. We're going to break all of it down, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. I am traveling right now. I'm in Toronto, but I am traveling, so bear with me if, bear with the camera. It's not going to be quite as good as home, but I'm still going to be producing daily videos multiple times a day for you all, keeping you up to date. But again, I'm traveling, so bear with it a little bit, but I'll continue to pump out the videos even while I'm traveling. But we'll dive into it. Now, this afternoon has been a little bit crazy. I had a video earlier today on the moves that they've made surrounding a bunch of their players, Christian Bethancourt, but today, there's been a ton of rumors circulating, and it started with a couple different things, and I want to dive into both of them. We're going to start with this. This is from Dan Bertels. He has a few thousand followers on Twitter. There's a sense that a 3-year, $75 million contract between Pete Alonso and the Blue Jays is close. The Mets last offered 3 years at $68 to $70 million. Now, again, I'm going to use my classic saying. I know you guys are going to leave comments about it. Take most of what is here with a grain of salt. Now, I waited a little bit. These people are making very interesting claims. Now, this guy is, some people are saying he's fairly reliable, 3 years, $75 million. But the reason that everything has started to gain traction is because it wasn't just him. Doug Doucette, who's a guy that is pretty, I'm not going to say well-known, especially in the Jays community. He does some stuff with he tweets about the Leafs. He's been involved in the Leafs community a little bit, has gotten some things right, supposedly. He says Scherzer 1 year, Alonso 3 years, 75 is done. It's more complicated than the opt-out options, incentive, bonuses, etc. But I get the sense it's all wrapped up, could be announced today even. Now, this had fans absolutely, baffled and confused. When you take both of these things, we're going to dive into a report here in a minute. You take both of these things from different reporters, independent sources, things start to get very interesting with also specifics regarding both. Alonso deal sounds like more money than this, 25, 28, 30, with opt-outs after years 3. Might be opt-ins for the Jays to negate the opt-out with an extra $5 million or so in salary across the final 2 years. Framework for the deal seems pretty complicated. Now, this is a very specific report from this guy. He is not a notable, not a well-known reporter, so the legitimacy of it is still in question. It's still up in the air, and that's ultimately going to be what it comes down to. We're going to dive into stats and things like that in a minute. You have Mockbaum has gotten some things right, some things wrong, saying the Jays have made it clear to Alonso and his camp that they want him. Alonso's made it clear that he is ready for a new chapter. However, I've been told nothing is close at this time, but not ruling. He kind of hedged his bets here. But Michael Moreno, a fairly, he's more reliable than these other guys, said, stop believing everything you see. I don't know where Pete's going to end up going, but I'd make sure to check the sourcing of some of the reporting that's out there. Nothing done or close to his knowledge. Now, he's a Mets guy, so this is interesting. So maybe he's hearing from the Mets camp that nothing is necessarily close. So this just dropped. But then after all of this, the situation's ridiculous. You have two, independent reporters, or at least guys who are claiming to have sources, saying that a deal is done. It absolutely blew up, and that's, of course, why I'm covering it. But then, finally, he broke the silence some more, and that's Doug Doucette, and he came out and said something extremely interesting. So you can see this here, bear the weird cropping a little bit. This literally just came out. Listen, I'm not an insider. I'm not a reporter. I'm working the phones to dig up every little detail to write or podcast about. Turn me into a hero or villain, I don't care. It doesn't change my life at all. Just be happy Alonso and Scherzer are going to the Jays. So he doubles down on this. You will likely never see me post anything I hear again. I'm honestly a sucker for the behind-the-scenes rumblings, and usually it's very veiled and it stays in the DMs. For fun speculation, talk some, to throw stuff against the wall in private. I had information on Santander that I mostly kept to myself. That was far more accurate than most of the mainstream, and this information came from the same source, so I believe it strongly. He then goes on to say, now that I've got actual reporters in my DMs trying to trade information with me, and I've sifted through some BS and shared some of it with y'all, but I don't have the time, energy, or patience or desire to keep doing it, so if my original source has more info, you'll hear it. The rest can filter through whatever Twitter needs to filter. So this guy comes out and he just completely doubles down on his initial report of Scherzer 1 year, Alonso 3 years. And he said that he got it from the same source that told him that Anthony Santander was going to be a Toronto Blue Jay. And he obviously, now anyone can make this up. He didn't tweet the Santander stuff. He kept, and again, he says he usually keeps all this information private. So he's either really making things up and playing a huge game with the fan base, which would be interesting for a guy. He has a bit of a following, all these different things. But then you also have reports here from some more notable reporters. And again, Michael Moreno is not a John Heyman or anything like that. And last we heard from John Heyman, Pete Alonso was down to the Jays and the Mets. So at that point, you add up some of the reports, and I've been covering it here on the channel extensively, of course. You have John Heyman, you have Ken Rosenthal, you have all these guys saying that Pete Alonso to the Jays is very real. Ben Nicholson-Smith, as recent as last night, said that the interest is mutual, and Ben Nicholson-Smith said last night that the Jays' #1 priority is Max Scherzer, and then, of course, Pete Alonso. So if you pair that with two different reporters, now, again, there's a world where Dan Bartels just took what he said and doubled down on it, hoping that he's right, and then he gets some credibility. But again, all these guys have a little bit of followings. Now, you think that, we've seen people with followings lie before, whether that be JP Hornstra, whether that be even John Morosi. So it's a very interesting situation to kind of dissect. Once pen is on paper, then we can all start to get excited. Again, I'm taking it with a huge grain of salt. I do think that there is a good chance that what he's saying is correct, especially with the way that he's doubled down on his reporting. And he is definitely fed up with some of the way the fan base has reacted. He's still answering now. And ultimately, it's going to be, this could be a Brandon, a BKUH situation with George Springer, where he said, he called George Springer, said from the barbershop that the Jays got George Springer, Brandon K. If you guys are familiar with that back in 2021, there has been instances where this stuff happens, and in the MLB more than anything, there's two ways. It's kind of a double-ended sword here. In the MLB, there's reporters that, there's a lot more speculation, a lot more fake reporters than any other sport. But at the same time, there's also a lot more fake reporters that get things right more than any other sport. So whether you want to believe it or not is interesting. Now, if they do go ahead and pull the trigger and they get this done, now if you're able to pull this off, it really changes the way that the landscape is of this team. Because not only do you have Pete Alonso, you have Max Scherzer. And quite frankly, I'm going to hope this is true, because Max Scherzer is an absolute animal. Pete Alonso is an absolute animal. And as you start to think about what this team desperately, desperately needs, it is hitting for power, which Pete Alonso brings. It is a dog of a pitcher. I guess 1 year 15, 1 year 16 seems pretty close to my initial estimation. You start to think about now everything that could go into this move. And man, oh man, does it start to get extremely not only interesting, but if this ends up coming to fruition, this Jays team is completely reconstructed. And again, Alonso deal sounds like more money than this, 25, 28, 30 with opt-outs. So if this deal comes to fruition, we know Pete Alonso and Max Scherzer are friends. We know there's a relationship there. We know that both of these guys, or all three of these guys, all two of these guys, Pete Alonso and Max Scherzer, are both very much willing to come to Toronto from all reports. Again, John Heyman said the Jays had a Zoom meeting with Max Scherzer very, very recently. If they're able to get this done, if they're able to pull this off, the question mark now becomes, how good are the Jays going to be? But before the pen is to paper, we need to make sure that they actually get this done. They've swung and they've missed a lot. They've came second a lot. There's been so many instances of the Toronto Blue Jays missing out on big-time free agents that, we even got our definition of JP Hornstra again with Roki Sasaki, with a bunch of reporters saying, they made the trade for Miles Straw, all these different things. So as these things start to come to fruition, we got to hope the deal gets done. Things are getting very interesting. You have reports coming out. I just saw one right now on my screen here. Hector Gomez 5 minutes ago saying, quote, the source, the Blue Jays have an offer out for Pete Alonso. It's a competitive offer and they believe they will land him. This is from Hector Gomez literally 5 minutes ago. So as I'm recording, more reports and more news is coming out. So as stuff continues to fly, I will keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. But ultimately, it's going to be a busy next few hours, like I predicted, and like I've been saying in my videos. It's going to be a crazy little bit of time for Toronto Blue Jays fans, and I think ultimately they land him. I do think Doug is right, but it doesn't matter at this point if they're finalists or if they're close to getting him. They need to get the job done. There's some reports that are conflicting, and at this point, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a very, very interesting ride. But we'll have another update for you probably later tonight as more reports start to come. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Again, it's the place to be for Daily Jays content. And I'm traveling, so bear with the camera quality. Hopefully, it's still okay. But I'm still going to pump out the videos for you all. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.